So here's my question this week. Are you training your salespeople to play the long game? Listen, most companies have a sales cycle that can exceed 12 months. In other words, the opportunity to make a sale may be outside of this year's sales objectives. It won't even impact my numbers this year. But most salespeople do not have a plan or a strategy for nurturing a relationship over that amount of time. Do they know how to play the long game? This is Sales Untraining, a very different kind of sales podcast. 3 out of 4 salespeople are failing. They're falling short of their revenue. Why doesn't sales training work? That's what this sales podcast is about. It's your weekly sales strategy guide designed to rewire your sales brain. Welcome to Sales Untraining. I'm Kelly Riggs. So good to have you. Hey, take a moment, if you don't mind. Like and subscribe to the podcast. But more importantly, and I say this every week, share it with someone who can benefit, someone who needs to be in on the conversation. What in the world are we doing in sales training that consistently leads to 3 out of 4 salespeople not being very good? In fact, some of them are just flat out terrible. Well, a lot of those errors, a lot of those challenges, a lot of those problems are created by the way we do training. This week, we want to talk about something very specific, and that is playing the long game. Listen, one of the more common questions that I get from sales teams is, how in the world do I continue to nurture the long-term opportunity? I mean, I know they might buy something in the future. They may have a project in the future. They're satisfied with their current vendor. They have a contract. There's a number of reasons that they may not be able to get any business right now, including the fact that they just don't need it. Not right now. But I want to keep them on the radar. I mean, after all, they could be a potential client, and they could be a big client for that matter. But what in the world do I do? Well, are you training your salespeople how to play the long game? Here's what's really funny about that is, I ask salespeople all the time, is selling about relationships? Unequivocally, the answer is yes. If I ask how many of you believe that, every hand goes up, no question. But most people don't have the first idea what a relationship is. I mean, they've got this notion that if you buy something from me, we've got a relationship. Listen, I don't want to get too terribly in the weeds here, but there happens to be a particular profession that you can be intimate with someone. Doesn't mean you have a relationship, even though you made a purchase. You know what I'm getting at? Well, but Kelly, I've made calls on them, and I've left a business card and a brochure, and I know the names of 2 or 3 people there. I have a relationship. No, you don't. You just don't. That's not how relationships work, and it's really become a problem. But when you're playing the long game, you don't want to wait until the opportunity begins to come alive. I talked to so many clients. We got an RFP today. Boy, are we excited. It's a good-looking opportunity. Do you have relationships? What do you mean? I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Do you know someone? Do you have a champion inside the organization? Do you have someone you can pick up the phone and talk to? More importantly, would they pick up the phone and talk to you? Would they initiate the conversation? That's really what a real relationship looks like. When I was in the medical business, I knew when I had a relationship with an orthopedic surgeon, if I got a call in the middle of the afternoon and it was one of the doctors and he or she said to me, I've got a patient coming in and they're presenting with a certain set of circumstances. How do you think we need to proceed with your equipment? What is the best way for me to go? I've got a relationship with them. Are you kidding me? They're asking my opinion about how to treat a patient? Now, let's be fair. They're not really asking me how to treat the patient per se. They're asking me, which part of my equipment line do we want to use, or how would I use it, or what's the correct application. But the point is, they trust me. And that's when you have a relationship. It's really interesting when you talk to people about relationships. It absolutely is the key to selling. But what is the key to creating a relationship? Again, people have this mistaken notion that because they've talked to someone or been in the building or they've even bought something more than once, then clearly they have a relationship. Other people look at relationship as, the ability to build a rapport very quickly. Can I be clear? Rapport does not equal relationship. Rapport is like on the very, very, very front end of a potential relationship. Rapport is when there's a connection and it feels like, hey, you know what? I might be able to get along with you. You might not be another salesperson, the kind that show up and throw up and talk me to death and don't know anything about my business and so forth and so on. No, a relationship might begin with building rapport, getting to know each other, finding common ground, but that is not what a relationship is. I mean, the first time you go out with someone, go way back in history. I'm a little older, so back in the day when we dated, we asked someone to go on a date. We didn't, look online. We actually walked up to someone and asked them if they'd like to go on a date, and we picked them up and so forth. But I could have a great date with that individual. It doesn't mean we have a relationship. Oh, it could be the beginning of something really cool. I started dating my wife of now 43 years when I was 17 years old. She was 15. The first time we did anything together, we didn't have a relationship. Oh, we got interested in each other, but it took a while for the relationship to develop where we started to figure out this could go somewhere, right? That's the idea. Relationships are built on trust. Trust is built on two things. Number one, consistency. It's being around someone. It's being visible, I like to say. If you make a call on me today and I don't see you again for 3.5 months, the likelihood we build a relationship is not great, even if we had rapport while you were here. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I mean, after all, in the dating relationship with my soon-to-be wife at that time, I was every day, every other day. I mean, we were going out on a regular basis. We wanted to be with each other together. So, we didn't say, hey, fantastic date. What are you doing in January? No, it doesn't work that way. But salespeople, they have this weird notion. Hang on, Kelly. I went in and I talked to him. I told him who we were and I left a business card and a brochure. Or, I gave him a pitch on the first call. Really? Anyway, I don't, there's no interest, there's no opportunity, but I don't want to just kick them to the curb, but I don't know what to do next. Well, let me tell you what most salespeople do. Hey, spend a minute on LinkedIn and you'll see people talk about this all the time. Making the proverbial call to, I just want to check in, see how you're doing. Hey, I wanted to see if you've got anything going on. Do you have any projects we can bid on or quote or... Wow, really? No, that's not building a relationship. That's being disruptive. And it's really counterintuitive to any kind of relationship building exercise whatsoever. So Kelly, well, okay, brilliant. I need to be consistently visible. How do I do that? Well, you got to add the second part of my phrase, and that is to be visible and valuable. Salespeople just think that they have to show up, consistently once a month, once every 3 weeks, once every 2 weeks, whatever it is, whatever cadence they happen to be settled on at this time. And they just need to knock on the door, come in. Hey, how you doing? Tell a good joke, talk about our football teams, blah, blah, blah. And that's a call and it's helping me build a relationship. No, it's not. You're interrupting people. Period. Are you training your salespeople to do this? I certainly hope not. So what's the concept behind being valuable? It's like I never walk into a call that I don't bring something of value to the individual I'm calling on. Now, listen, we can go into deep dive on this, and there's a whole lot of things that it could be. It could be everything from best practices to case studies to interesting articles to new applications. I mean, there's lots and lots of things that you can pile up, and I can make calls for months upon end, no problem, walk in, and not be a disruptive problem and annoyance to someone and actually continue to bring value to them in each and every call. You know why? I'm not there for me. I'm not there to sell. I'm not there to push product. I'm there to get interested in them. Listen, when you're building a relationship, you get interested in the other person, their needs, what's important to them. Do you know in the real world, we don't build relationships by telling people how awesome we are and how many clients we have, how many girls we've gone out with? We don't do that. Let me come in and talk to you about me and how important I am and all the things that I do and why you should go out with me. I mean, it's just nonsensical. But that's what we do in that world. And you can't be valuable doing that. I have to think in terms of what's important to you. What do you need? How can I bring value to this call? If you want to play the long game, you've got to create a call cadence to be visible consistently, and you've got to bring value to every call. Imagine the client, the prospective client that you come in to see, and they're like, "Hey, how you doing? What's going on? What do you got for me today?" Knowing full well that you're there, but they don't have anything, they're not interested in buying anything right now. And then maybe one day you walk in, they say, "So glad you're here. We're spinning up a new project, or we've got an opportunity that I want to talk to you about." Why? Because they know who you are. You've created credibility through consistency and value. And now they're ready to begin to see what kind of expertise you bring to the game. That's how you play the long game. Now, coming up next, I'm going to tell you the real secret to relationships on the other side. I'm Kelly Riggs. Thank you so much for joining me on Sales Untraining. I hope you get great value out of the podcast, and I hope you're sharing it with someone else. But I want to take a moment, and I want to talk to you about my friend Larry Levine. And if you don't know who he is, you need to write his name down and you need to go find him. He wrote a book called Selling from the Heart, and he has his own podcast called Selling from the Heart. And you want to check it out because it's all about building relationships and authenticity in relationships. And even more important, he's got a brand new book out, Selling in a Post-Trust World. Yes, I have my very own signed copy from Larry. Really excited about it. His first book just took off like crazy. It's become a movement in the sales world, and so many people are responding to the authenticity side of becoming great as a salesperson. But I don't want you to miss out on the fact that Larry Levine is a great sales guy. I mean, he made a career in selling, and then he got out and decided to start sharing what he does with others, and I'm really glad that he does. This book, Selling in a Post-Trust World, is really critical in terms of what it means to work in today's marketplace. I mean, there's more distrust than there ever has been, and there are more pretenders and wannabes out there. What Larry calls empty suits. What a great metaphor. Empty suits out there trying to sell. But in this book, you're going to get some great content. Things like Chapter 1, your relationship with yourself, then being real with yourself, being real with others. And then moving into Section 2, where he talks about meaningful value. You can tell that he and I come from the same place when we talk about authenticity and bringing value to your clients and those things. But in Chapter 6, don't miss it. He talks about the importance of business acumen, being good in business, and how it impacts your success. And then he goes on to talk about inspirational experiences that you'll want to read. Take a minute. It's worth the $20. Buy the book. Find him on his sales podcast, Selling from the Heart. You won't regret it. Welcome back to Sales Untraining. Again, I'm Kelly Riggs. Thanks for being here. We talk about relationships and we talk about playing the long game. You know what the reality is for salespeople is that when they're prospecting, and you do have them prospecting, don't you? You do have the expectation and the standard and the metric for prospecting, don't you? I mean, after all, if they're not building their sales funnel, tough to be successful over the long term. But here's the thing. Most people don't understand that in the vast majority of cases where companies have long sales cycles, you've got to be running two tracks at the same time. You got to be building a short-term pipe and a long-term pipe. You got to play the short game and the long game. The short game is things that I either have in the funnel that are very, very fresh and new, and I can close in less than 6, 9, or 12 months, before the year ends when my quota has to be reached. Or You have some products, some services that you can actually sell in a shorter amount of time, and they can close this year. But many of your best opportunities are going to be long-term opportunities, and you do have to try to break into an existing relationship or an existing contract or an existing product that someone is using and they're happy with, and it's fine for now. So what do? Well, you play the long game. And the idea of building a relationship with people over time is really predicated on three things. And we talked about two of those. One obviously is consistency of contact and meeting people and getting to know them. And yes, building that rapport, but leading to other things. Number two, it's about value. It's about how you see them and how important that they are to you. Because, well, I think it was Dale Carnegie says you can make more friends in 2 months than you can in 2 years by getting interested in other people. Yeah, it's true in life. Turns out it's true in sales as well. People are going to have a better opinion of you and much more likely to build a relationship with you, the thing that we all think is a key to selling, if they think you're interested in them. You're not just there to sell them something. I mean, I ask people, what do you not like about salespeople? The most common answer is they talk too much. All they care about is themselves. All they do is talk about themselves, their products, and their company. And I don't care. Now, at some point in time, I'm going to have an interest, but not now. I don't know them from anything. I don't even know if they can help me. And they don't even know who I am or what I do or how they might be able to help me. So consistency and value are critical. But let me list the third thing in building effective relationships, certainly absolutely critical in the long game, and that's authenticity. Listen, you got to take a moment and you got to go look up a friend of mine, Larry Levine. He wrote a couple of great books. The most recent one is Selling in a Post-Trust World. It's a fantastic book. In fact, I've got it right here. Selling in a Post-Trust World. And Selling from the Heart, his first book, it's all about authenticity. You know what buyers hate about salespeople? They're trying to be someone else. Oh, and my favorite, they're trying to be your buddy. Oh, they're acting like we're best friends and we've known each other for years. You ever seen those guys? Make you crazy. Here's my question. Are you training people to do that? Are you training that nonsense out of them? Because authenticity is critical. People buy from people. They don't buy from caricatures. They don't buy from some image. They buy from a real person that they trust and they care about. Zig Ziglar in the 80s was saying it long before anybody else. Said people buy from people they like and they trust. And we just don't like or trust phony people. You got to be authentic, right? You got to be who you are, and you've got to get interested in them. And that authenticity will help you develop that relationship. But you want to know what the real secret of relationships is? People don't buy because of relationships. They don't. Nobody says, well, that guy. Well, I say nobody. Of course it happens on occasion. I buy from an old fraternity brother because he's a fraternity brother. Or I buy from someone I used to work with because I used to work with them. But the fact of the matter is, I already know and trust them the vast majority of time. But here's the thing. If that individual's not bringing value to the table for me, then I'm probably not buying anyway. Typically, relationships don't create the sale. What they do is get you a seat at the table. And a good relationship is important to get you in front of the buying curve, in front of the buy cycle. You don't want to be coming in late to the game. We got an RFP. I mean, they've already done their research. They probably got a short list, and you find out about it and they say, sure, you want to send in a bid or quote? Go ahead. No problem. Sometimes they send out RFPs for what reason? Yes, it's the budget quote. They're getting quotes from the 2 or 3 people they think they're going to buy from, but accounting requires them to get a couple more other quotes so they can compare pricing. So they get your budget quote. They're not buying from you. I mean, even if you're the low quote, they're going to go, whoa, stop, pump the brakes. They're lower than everybody else. So I'm going to go to one of the 2 people that I really want to buy from and say, listen, if you really want the business, you got to do something with your price because these people will buy it for less. And by the way, as an aside, because that other salesperson is probably not very good, they're dropping their price just because somebody asked. But that's a whole nother podcast. Authenticity, combine it with consistency, and someone who brings value to the table. They're interested in me. They care about what I want. You're going to build a relationship over time, and you're justified in making those calls over the course of time, even though you're not actually selling anything. But the real secret is that relationship is going to get you to the front of the line, get you a seat at the table, and give you a real opportunity to win a deal. Yeah, here's the question. Are you training your people to play the long game? I'll see you next time.
Sales on Training is a production of Business Locker Room and Pod About It Productions. Music and editing by Doug Branson. To get more Kelly, visit bizlockerroom.com.